You know, when they announced this show, everybody and their brother was like, oh, who wants to see this? Nobody's asking for an Echo show. Well, how you feeling now? Probably almost exactly the same, because people are stubborn. But you should feel different, because it's a good show. Hey, what's up? My name is John Bonjour. I am an artist and a film enthusiast. I have drawn some art and I would like to enthuse about some film. In this case, we are talking about Marvel's Echo that just came out this week on a random Wednesday night. Don't know why. That was a weird call. This has been an interesting ride coming up to this because Marvel has had a track record that I would say is faulty, but not broken. It's some of its shows have been good, some of them have been a little less good. I don't dislike any of them, but like some of them are worse than others. I can acknowledge that. And then they announced that Echo was going to be a show after Hawkeye, and a lot of people kind of felt like, okay, this is just like a random character that we're spinning off, which to be fair, it is. But I was interested to see what they were going to do because it was like, it felt like such a random decision that it feels like they must have a good story to tell. And then they came out with the trailer, and it was dark and gritty, and all of a sudden it was like, oh, this is maybe something a little different. This could be the renaissance of Daredevil and Luke Cage and Iron Fist. Daredevil and Luke Cage. This could be when we get back to that gritty Marvel that we all really loved from the Netflix era, and then maybe introduce that into the MCU. So there were a lot of swirling emotions, some questioning of why this was happening, and some excitement for maybe the potential future of what this could mean. And when it comes down to it, Echo is out now, and I have seen all of it, and I really like it. I really like it so much. I think it is really, really well done, and just a solid, solid entry into the MCU. I don't think it's flawless, and there's a lot of weird stuff I kind of want to talk about with it, but I do, just out of the gate, I really love this show. I thought it was handled super well. I love that it's very character-driven. It feels like it was important. It feels like somebody cared deeply about this story and this character, and not so much that they wanted to just make a bunch of money with whatever thing they knew would make money. Sony with their Marvel Spider-Man universe of Marvel characters, or whatever they call that. I'm going to try to stay away from spoilers generally throughout the review, just because I think that there's a lot to talk about without getting into that. So, if you haven't seen it, keep watching the video this time. Sometimes I do spoilers. This is not one of those times. Overall, the main positives that I like about this show, I think the acting is really, really solid. I don't know how to pronounce her name. Alaka Cox? Alakwa? I'm going with Alaka, but I don't think that's right, and I googled it and it did not help me. But our lead actress is so rock solid in this role. I think she was kind of finding her way in Hawkeye, and honestly, she doesn't really fit Hawkeye's vibe, so she kind of stood out, and not necessarily in a great way in Hawkeye. Where in this show, she gets a chance to kind of live in her own world. We get to see the world through her eyes, and I think that that's really solid. If I'm not mistaken, I believe that she is also deaf. I appreciate that they found someone who, A, looks great in the part, B, acts fantastically and can handle some of the action sequences. I don't know how much of that was her being a stunt double or her, but whoever it is, they did a good job making it seem pretty seamless. And then C, I like that they found somebody who actually is deaf, because that's a deeply important part of this character. And if they had gone with somebody who wasn't, it would kind of feel like, I don't know, just a little weird. Like, I obviously don't think you should find a blind person to play Daredevil, because that would be incredibly dangerous for everyone involved. But like, when you can, I think it's important to cast to the strengths and the truths of the character. Another huge positive is I love the Netflixiness of it all. This is finally the thing to bring the Netflix universe into canon in the MCU, and that's not just me hypothetically speculating on this. That's true. That's the truth. The MCU Disney Plus timeline now has Daredevil and the Defenders and Jessica Jones and Luke Cage on their timeline, which means they happened and we're acknowledging them, which is wonderful news because quite a few of those shows are very, very good. Some of them are also okay. With that Netflix era comes Vincent D'Onofrio's Kingpin, who is literally always good no matter where he shows up. His little bit in Hawkeye was good. His part in this is incredible. I think he does a great job. This feels a little bit more like the Kingpin of eras past, but also I like that they've updated him. He's not like, it makes sense that Kingpin would not be a guy who's stagnant. He would embrace technology. He would embrace the growth of this universe, and it makes a lot of sense that he would use all of that to his advantage. I think that they did a good job, not adapting, but growing that character from the last time we saw him, which was pretty early days MCU, and then now, where it's like we're in multiverse, we're doing all this crazy stuff. Iron Man suits are the least of our worries. Like, to see him start to embrace some of that technology in a way that makes sense for Kingpin. Like, if he showed up in an Iron Man suit, that would be kind of badass, but stupid. It would be dumb, but it would look cool. But I like that version of the character. I like that this is a completely separate story. This isn't Daredevil, but a girl. This isn't supposed to be anything like we've ever seen before. You know, the Native American heritage is really important to this character and to this show, and it's very, very, very well threaded throughout the show. Like, there's a lot of that in this show, and I think that's also a huge positive. It's nice to see some diversity, some interesting new characters, new stories, people with a different worldview than the one that I have or the one that most of our characters have had so far. I like that. Also, the action is good. I think that's sort of a weird, I guess this is a good transition into some of the things that I think are a little weirder. Just the general marketing for this show suggested, like, this is gonna be intense, this is gritty and dark and hard-hitting, and yeah, some of it is. Like there are moments that are definitely a lot bloodier and more violent than I was expecting, so that's good. But as a show, it's not gritty or dark or at all. Like, it's a very heartfelt, touching show about the growth of a character, which I don't see as a negative thing, but it's also kind of weird to me, like, if you're going to market it as the next Daredevil and then it's just isn't. Like, that's bold move, Disney, to be like, set your Disney Plus to TV mature because this is gonna kick your teeth in, and then it's just like a couple of guys get shot in the head. I don't know. I thought that was kind of funny. I'm excited to see, because I think people are responding well to the sort of more gritty, gory elements of this show. I'm excited to see what happens with that and where maybe Disney will start saying, oh, we could make Daredevil darker than we were planning on it. Or we could, you know, introduce the Punisher in a way that isn't like shooting rubber bullets or whatever. You know, like, we can tackle some of these darker stories. You know, this and I think Werewolf by Night were both important steps to getting us toward, say, like a Ghost Rider that actually feels like Ghost Rider. Or, you know, like some sort, like Blade being something not goofy and stupid, but interesting and fun. But the marketing for the show was a little off. I think there's a lot of stories about the show, and there's a lot of like just external kind of behind the scenes stories that I think are interesting, and I believe quite a few of them. The one, there was like some kind of leak that said that Marvel was like, thought this was unreleasable, thought this was going to be terrible, and that they should just throw it in the garbage, but they had to put it out anyway. I don't buy that. Unless they reshot the entire show, I don't buy that. I do fully buy that there was at least one, maybe two episodes that they completely cut out, or episodes worth of content, because there are quite a few moments in this show that feel like, okay, we got here. You didn't totally explain how we got here, but we did get here, but you were not at all clear. Might will just randomly show up in different clothes, or we'll cut to a B plot that hadn't really been established, but was just sort of going now. There's logical leaps that I feel like you have to make. And not in a Loki way, where it felt like Loki, episode to episode, there were some logical leaps where you had to be like, okay, we got here now because this is the story we're trying to tell. This one feels like it's between episodes, and also like the first episode is a very strange balance of flashbacks and new content and just trying to power through Origin as fast as possible. All of that to say, I think it's odd. Some of the pacing is a little bit odd, and it feels a little jumbled. It feels much like the Marvels. It feels like there is kind of a different version of this somewhere out there, but unlike the Marvels, I think that this is probably the best version of what they were trying to do here. It feels like you probably cut out a significant amount of just sort of dead air. That's at least what I get the sense of. Maybe there's a bunch of really good stuff that they decided to cut out, but it doesn't feel like that to me. I think the story remains intact. It's not as jumbled as the Marvels was, and it's not as hard to follow as like the jumps in Loki. So it's Honestly, if I hadn't heard the story, I question whether or not I would have even noticed, but there's a chance, and with that, it's like some of the editing is a little weird. I won't spoil anything with this, but my other kind of potential negative for the show is some of the ending. I think if you're not bought into what this show is trying to be, some of the last couple episodes will definitely not sell you on it. Like, if you're not bought into the energy that the show is going for, by the time you get to those, some of those are going to feel goofy and kind of weird and a little out of place for this gritty, dark TV show that they were marketing, which is partially, I think, a mistake on the marketing team. I see why you would do that, because obviously it got people way more interested in this show than would be, and I hope that that means more people will watch it, and that's all good things. So I see why you did that. But it is like a little weird when you get to the end and there's some things happening. You're like, this was going to be the street level show. No, like we're okay. There's some choices that are made that for me work really well, but I could see why they wouldn't. All that to say, I think Echo's really good. I think it's a solid start to this year for Marvel. I love when things come out of left field and they're good instead of just being fine. I like when the general discourse is, wow, I did not anticipate anything from this, but it actually ended up being pretty good. And that's what I'm seeing a lot of out there. So that makes me happy. I think that this show is really solid. I don't think it's for everybody. I'm sure there's going to be people, but I do think that this is a solid show. I like the character. I appreciate what they did with it. Yeah, it's just, I really like the show. I think it's really solid. But what did you think? Did you like Echo? Did you hate it? Do you think I'm completely wrong? Do you think I'm a genius? Definitely tell me if you think I'm a genius. Just let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching this video and checking out my channel. If you'd like to hear more of my thoughts on movies, comics, TV shows, Vin Diesel, really just mostly Vin Diesel, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and comment down below what you'd like me to review next. Or do none of that because I am not your dad.